Yo, what's up? It's Driscoll. In today's video, I want to break down a dubstep drop that I made recently. This is probably a song that I want to finish one day, but in the meantime, I thought I'd just make a video about it. So this is more on the heavy, distorted dubstep side, rather than simple rhythm. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so as you can see, pretty heavy, pretty distorted. That's all we want. So for the kick, I just got one from a Kompany sample pack that you can find on Splice. This is from Kompany Collection Volume 2, and the kick is the short number 3. I just used this one because it's just short and punchy, and that's all I wanted. So nothing special here, it sounds like this. And then for the clap, I really wanted to get something with a long tail, and I wanted it to sound really spacious. And for some reason, I ended up going with a Kashmir sample. I mean, it's not expected in a dubstep drop, but he has some pretty good samples, so why not use them? Also, a little detail that I've done is fading out the transient of the clap, because I wanted to have the kick really coming through the mix properly. So it's not necessary, but it can help to make the kick more powerful. And then for the cymbals, I started by adding a China sample. Again, this is a Kashmir sample pack. And then to improve the flow of the drums, I just added a short hi-hat that I got from one of infekt sample pack. This is how the drums sounds all together. Alright, so now for the basses. The first one that I designed was this yoi bass. So all this sound really comes out of the post-processing and the distortion inside SERUM. I just used any spectral wavetable that you can find, and then if you add a low pass with a high resonance and you add movement to the cutoff, you're gonna get this kind of vowel sound. But then if you want to make a yoi bass, you have to add the downsample distortion, and then you play around with the drive and you're gonna get different tones, but you can play around until you find something that you like. For me it was 50% on the drive, but as you can see, if I move it, it's gonna sound totally different. And then I just added a compressor on multiband. But now the sound is not really powerful. What I wanted was something really compressed and distorted. So I basically added a lot of OTTs and saturator and a few EQs here and there just to clean up the sound as I go. But yeah, if I start adding the OTTs, this is how it sounds. The output is up on both of them, the time is up, and the amount is down. And then I wanted to break the signal through saturation, so I pushed it really hard, 17 dB here, and then I put soft clip on and reduced a little bit the output. And then after this is a good point to start cleaning up the sound a little bit and shaping it the way you want. So I boosted some of the frequencies, I turned down some other frequencies just to clean up the sound and shape it. Then I added an erosion just to add some noise and some sort of saturation to the sound. And then I added another OTT, output is up, time is up, amount is down. Another saturator, drive is at 6 dB, soft clip is on, output is down. So as you can see, I'm really destroying the signal and then shaping it with the EQ and cleaning up the frequencies. Here I'm cutting the low end And then I just have a filter and an auto pan for transition. I don't even think I'm using the auto pan. So now the sound before post-processing and after post-processing. As you can see, this is a big difference. It sounds really distorted, but this is what I was going for. Then the next bass I made was another type of yoi bass. The first one is hitting every 4 bars, and the second one is hitting at the end of every 4-bar section. This is just a duplicate of the first one, so the post-processing is exactly the same, only the SERUM patch is a little bit different. So now this is how the bass sounds without any processing. So it's just an FM from B. I changed the wavetable to a digital one. The filter is now a bandpass and a notch filter. So the characteristic of this bass is mostly coming from the filter movement and from the downsample distortion. And then if you play around with the LFO, you can get really different tones. Then I added a phaser, a chorus, a compressor on multiband. And then I added the same post-processing chain as the first one, and this is how it sounds now. Then I duplicated again that same bass. So post-processing is again the same one, and the SERUM patch is a little bit different. So it's a Monster 2 wavetable, and it's a sustain, so it's staying up the whole time. It sounds like this on its own. I'm not even sure you guys can hear it. This is really quiet. It's basically just a sine wave with a little bit more harmonics. The sound really comes out again from the downsample distortion. So now we have the beginning of a sustain, and then if you add a compressor, it's a bit louder. And if you add the same processing chain as the 2 other basses, you get this. These 3 basses are all coming out of the same patch. Just duplicate and change the filter, the wavetable. One of them is an FM, but they all have the same processing, and this is how they sound one after the other. This next bass, so the main bass, is a new patch. This one is also an FM bass. I used a wavetable from the spectral section. It's being FM'd by a saw wave. The saw wave has a sync on, and the filter is a high peak filter. So this is how this sounds without any processing. Then I added a little bit of hyper dimension with the mix at 0 for the hyper, the size at 0 for the dimension, and the mix at 25%. I added a tube distortion with the drive at 80%, a short delay at 26 milliseconds, and I'm automating the mix because I don't want it to ring out the whole time, a multiband compressor, and then the sound characteristic is really coming from the reverb filter here. So same thing as the delay, I'm automating the mix because I don't want it to ring out too long. The reverb filter adds some sort of release to the sound that I didn't want to have. It sounds good actually, but that's not what I was going for, so I put the same LFO shape on the mix just to clean up the sound a little more. And then an EQ that I'm using, like basically a high pass filter. So now for the post-processing, I added a disperser, 2 OTTs, same thing, output is up, time is up, amount is down. Then once again, I'm pushing the sound through saturation with the soft clip on, and then I'm cleaning up all this mess. I added a reverb just to throw this bass into space, an erosion, and then the final EQ just to make sure all the low end is cut. And then finally for the sub bass. This sub bass is actually a patch that I recreated from one of Dripment's video. I'm gonna put the link to his video in the description below, and I highly recommend you guys to check it out. I believe he called it the sisto sub. It's basically a sine wave with a little bit of pitch automation, and it's going through a lot of distortion. And then the real trick is here. Once again, I will redirect you guys to one of Dripment's video where he explains how to make a drop like jkyl and hyde, I think. The real trick is to group all of your basses and your sub bass together, and then you clip them really heavily together. So for example, here I clipped all this group, all the basses and the sub bass at 6.4 dB. So if I remove the G clip, this is how all the basses and the sub bass sound together. And now if I add it, this is how it sounds. Yeah, so as you can see, it makes a really big difference. Dripment, if you see this, shout out to you. Then the next bass I added is just a little support bass. It's not very audible actually, but I think it helps with the overall mix. So nothing special here, it's just a very basic FM bass with a little bit of sync and some sort of comp filter. There's a compressor in SERUM and just an EQ to cut out the low end. And then I just added a really short vocal sample at the end of the section here. And then I added this short noise hit. This is one I made in my previous video where I make a drop like muerte. This is just like a distorted noise hit. It just helps with the rhythm of the drop basically. And then the final thing is, once again, a Kashmir sample. I wanted to add a melodic element playing at the same time in the drop. And I was kind of going for something dark and a little bit scary. So I wanted to get a violin sample and I found this one. So obviously this is in F minor. My drop is in D sharp minor, so I had to pitch it accordingly. And as you can see, I added two instances of the same sample because one of them is pitched at normal pitch, so -2 here because we are in D sharp minor, and the other one is pitched an octave higher, so +10. And I think the only thing I did on this was adding a chorus effect because I wanted to detune it a little bit. So this is how it sounds. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. I'm gonna play it one more time, but before I do, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel to not miss any of the future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.